Hello, everyone. This is the Natural Institute staff meeting Thursday, March 28th, 2024. Luke, could you just repeat that little bit of wisdom you just laid out?
Sure. I just wanted to point out that insecurity is a rational response to insufficient security. So
Right.
when we're looking at people,
Okay, so okay, give me that. Good. Go ahead.
yeah, when we're looking at people and we're seeing the behavioral expressions of insecurity, we don't just want to immediately jump to there's something wrong with that person. We got to look at what is the environment that they're in, or what they grew up in, or they're raised in, or whatever, where they didn't have the emotional regulation, the development of the emotional regulation to be able to navigate their environment. And so insecurity manifests out of that insufficient level of security. They didn't have people protecting them. They didn't have people teaching them how to do these things, right? So, I mean, it's a very rational response when you have insufficient development to navigate your environments. We should expect insecurity in those situations. So it's widespread. We see it all over the place because nobody's getting taught the emotional navigation they need or the emotional regulation they need to navigate their environments, right? We're not taught how to navigate our fear. We're not taught how to navigate our anxiety and stuff like that. And so it's everywhere, right? People all over the place are insecure, and it's getting worse and worse. That's because we're not doing anything to address the underlying issue of their responding rationally to insufficient security. So
no, our
I wanted you to hit that point there, because I was afraid, well, they're not going to understand that without the context. But right. Yeah, that's the second quote I've got from you in this meeting so far, Luke. All right.
Well, and the first response to their insecurity is sedation through entertainment, through drugs,
right.
through prescription medication. And instead of dealing with the problem, you have a broken leg? Well, here's a painkiller.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't do anything to equip them.
Why are you still limping?
That insecurity.
It's been a while. Why are you still limping? And we're not addressing the root causes of the problem, and they fester. They don't get better on their own. They get worse. Entropy takes over.
All right, they become pathological even.
All right, I'm gonna try to get this. I love these discussions, but we do have Dr. Worrell here today, and I think you have an issue, and we have Francis here. So I want to make sure we get Brad's topic off because he has a limited time. I think that's what's going on. Am I correct?
Works for me.
Well, no, but that's the idea, right? That's why you're here, because you have some.
Yeah, I have a proposal to make to the staff, which is
I've been married already, so another proposal won't work. I've learned my lesson.
Dr. Brown, a little louder.
I have to recover from that one. The thought I had was I'm interested in getting some of the people who are not in the staff involved more. And what I was hoping to do was to create some ad hoc groups to do specific research. Like what happens if like financial options for people who are trying to set things straight in the context of our world, right? So like what are financial options, and kind of work groups to brainstorm that and come up with some kind of report for us to review.
All right. So I want to, so let me contextualize. So we have a pretty long document, which is our strategic document, our non-LI staff projects priority staff, right? Mm-hmm. Right. And we've been focusing very heavily on our conferences, because that's gotten I guess if I move this screen over here, I'll be talking at you instead of sideways. Right. And so we've been focusing mostly on the conferences because that's a big bang for our buck. It helps us with everything we trying to do. Specifically, it helps us with legitimacy. There are projects that are not as strategic that we want to, that we could pursue, we could use to get people involved, I think is what you're saying, Brad. We could use these lesser projects to get people involved. So I think that's, if we look at it from that perspective, that would be really useful. My position on this is that, yeah, Brad, but somebody's got to manage it like Francis manages the rest of us. And and my suspicion is that means we have to volunteer you, because if it's your idea, that means you own it, right? Is that the?
Okay.
I'm trying to be presumptuous here, but you know, I'm perfectly willing to be wrong.
No,
So
it doesn't matter to me. I just wanted to present it to the staff as a possibility.
well,
And,
I
bounce that
like
off
it. Now I want
Brandon.
to ask a question of this team, because last year we took a risk, right? We brought a bunch of, why is my screen flickering? We brought a bunch of new people in and they didn't survive.
Hmm.
And so, what does that tell us? In other words, are we,
Says we were unable to create a win-win situation for them.
yes,
So either something they weren't getting that they needed, or something that we weren't getting we needed from them, and therefore we didn't embrace them strongly because we weren't getting what we needed. One or the other.
You're just incompatible with what else they have going on in life.
I think
Most
that's,
people
we
need-
would get Turbo. Turbo would be useful if he wasn't
Well,
otherwise
He's in a war. What is he
in a
supposed
war.
to do?
I think, but there are other people who are devoted to our cause out there. The question is, the people in this group aren't exactly intellectual lightweights. I'm controlling my urge to find someone to pick on with that one, but I'm not going to do it. I mean, everybody in this group has a thought leadership capacity, right? And when we bring people in to that category, it's hard for them. Can we bring people in like, who's the guy that wants to make the shirts that I still owe?
Tyson Bay, I believe.
Right. There are guys who would love to do that stuff if we said, hey, we need a team, we need a guy or a team to do X, and put it out in the community. There are people who would do that stuff because they just want it. I mean, it was like a thing we noticed at Mises Institute is that people would happily pay for books. In other words, they'd fund the printing of a book because it was something they felt that was tangible output to their contribution. But unless they had a lot of money, they wouldn't just do what I do, which is write a $5,000 check. Just do with what you want, right? They wouldn't do that. So, and so people need to feel like it matters that they're there. In other words, that they have some participation in it. So I don't have anything more to say other than I wanted to frame the discussion as we have not been exceptional at bringing people in. There's definitely a thought leader aspect to the people who can't get in here and stay in. And it takes a while to develop that, for people to know enough to be able to make use of the work that we do, such that they feel invested in it. So I like this idea. I have no idea if it will work. I suspect it will, but I'm not quite certain. And so I wanted to frame that in an effort to help Brad get the discussion going.
So I want to add 2 points to that. been looking at the strategic plan doc. Other than the top level objectives of where we want to be as an organization, there's a whole slew of unfunded projects. Because
Mhm,
as staff, our time and bandwidth and everything is limited.
mhm,
And I think we should focus on the things that only we can do. Like organizing a convention, that's probably something only we can do. The book, the pamphlet, even some of the lawfare stuff to get it started, that's only the things that staff can do. The bunch of other lower priority projects, such as marketing outreach and getting, I'm trying to pick another example, like using church as a platform and so on. I view those as, we think that's a good idea. We don't know whether it's going to work. We can let folks in the community to try them out, provided that we give them some guidance and guardrails. And then let's throw those out in the market and see whether they work. And if they stick, it may actually become a major project for the institute. And my second thought is in terms of how we want to run this, right? The movement, from my perspective, isn't so much centrally driven. I mean, we do have this central staff of idea generators, the core set of wizards.
mhm,
But it's much more, the whole movement is much more decentralized. It's much more like a collection of local nodes, just like the work parties, than it is a top-down army of sorts.
mhm.
Even the military thing is not exactly top-down. When you're fighting small-scale battles, you can't wait for answers. You wait for commands from high up. There has to be local level initiative. And so kind of going back to what Dr. Rell and you started on, it, for the community, for members in the community to take something on, I think we can model this after the local groups, and local leaders will emerge. We just need to give them essentially give them a go ahead and encouragement to take on such projects.
Yeah, we have to also manage them because, you know, that whole thing is if you go to a, I was just, Noah and I are working on this in the background. You go to a self-help thing, right? And you're all inspired. And then 3 days later, you're just back to being your normal self, right? Or this applies to everything in life. There's a 3-day, there's the 3-day half-life to inspiration. So what you find people doing is like they have to get addicted to self-help books. So there's always another form of inspiration. But that said, they don't actually have a goal, they don't develop skills, and they don't organize with others to bring them about. So
They have a goal. It's to feel better.
yeah,
And
okay,
reading
great.
another
Okay.
self-help book will make them feel better.
Go ahead, ruin my fucking day. Thank you. All right. So I think the issue is you need to provide, in other words, you need to keep a pulse with those people so that they have the social reward of interacting with you and the feeling of participation. They can't do it like, I mean, I like Luke's example. Luke is like, he says, I think I should do this. And Kurt says, I'm not sure that would work. And he goes off and writes a book and it works. Right. So, you know, you have to have a great deal of leadership capacity to go do. Did I fuck with you enough in that one, Luke? Was that?
No, that describes exactly what happened.
So, you know, so the reason I want, I think we should try this is if Brad is willing to work with those people. I certainly can't do more. None of the rest of us can do more. But Brad, you seem to be motivated to do it. And so I think this is a great idea. but only if we understand that, you know, you gotta touch base with these people every week, or they'll just, the inspiration curve will reduce. But, you know, you do that for long enough, what you'll find is that more and more people want to do it because the word will spread. And you'll eventually develop a network of people who want to do this stuff. What we have to recognize is that, and I have, as someone who's run a lot of companies and as someone who gives people lots of opportunity for self-accomplishment, lots of people fail. Because it's like thinking is not the same, daydreaming is not the same as thinking. Thinking is not the same as planning, and planning is not the same as executing, and executing is not the same as completing, right? And what I have found is I build my teams by keeping the door open and letting this happen. And I think, Brad, if you're willing to do this, my suggestion is we should do that. Everybody else, please defeat me or whatever.
Yeah, I think too that, you know, we have enough thinkers, and bringing in more thinkers is actually always a risk, because if you get too many people in the room, you really need to split it into two groups in order to have discussions. Otherwise, you're on a 2-hour call and you don't have a chance to say anything. Were you really there? I think we're at a good size now. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't bring in more thinkers, but what we really need is operations guys.
Yeah, we're sort of. I just want to. I want to run by.
Go ahead, please.
I think we're missing someone on Brandon's end that's legal, and I think we're missing somewhere around Brian's end, which is Brian's very conscious of, how would you say it, the ordinary guys. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, somewhat from the family, the sheepdog. I mean, I have
Right.
that. There's also a heroic element. What I'd add to this conversation is that Noah brought something up good on Twitter today, that men aren't driven by happiness near as much as women and children are.
Yes.
And we're driven to some degree. We can hold anger. We can a lot more than they can hold it. And what I would say in terms of maybe some of the loss of our group is that we haven't channeled their anger in productive ways. So this could be the white nationalist, this could be the Christian element, this could be the conspiracy theorist angle, could be even the crypto bros, that we're not because the seeking of justice is the big redemption arc that we're going for here, and especially what heroes are driven by is a sense of justice, because it's the justice that can bring a sense of peace and satisfaction, which I think men generally want, is the satisfaction that justice has been delivered. So in that, I posted this thing that basically Rome became the church, London became the bank, and then the US became the military. And so if we reach out to military men who would effectively back up anything that we do with like what's really making military men angry, let's answer that for them. For the banking guys or the guys that want to be, so it comes back to Brandon's thing about care, production, and protection. You go to the production guys and go, what's pissing you guys off and what do you guys want to fix? For the productive guys, the guys that want to trade and make sure that we have an ongoing fucking concern while all these other things are happening, which I think Brad is talking about. He's sensing into the falling economy that can bring a whole bunch of other factors when we're not in a safe space and we have no means of economic trade besides those that are being manipulated and corrupted, and monies are being given to enemies and all. I mean, it's getting insane on that production and banking side. And then the last one is narrative. We also have to find guys that understand. I mean, they can see narratives very clearly. They can get on top of memes and stories. I mean, it was hilarious when the meme coins Jews did 9/11, and then there was a Jews token, and there was something else, and they started funding it, and then the Jews wanted to shut it down when they were having no problem with nigger tokens and all this other stuff. It's just when they're protected class. So this thing around narratives and justice, freedom of speech, that type of stuff, I think. So the point I'm making is, yes, we have great men, and the great men can be driven by the things that infuriate them the most. Put the teams together within those three of basically military, banking, and church/narrative type stuff, and get them working towards a goal that's going to bring true justice. Because Kurt, you've been the best at giving the full series of like, okay, it started with, communism, postmodernism and feminism, and then anti-white and anti-male, but like you say, this is the depth of the whole thing we're dealing with. So you have really good way to say, and here's optimal solutions. And you can give optimal solution for narrative, you can get optimal solution for banking, and you can give optimal solution for military, which you may or may not be able to say those on public airways.
Yeah, that was, okay, so now I want to deal with Brad's thing, but Brian, I want to focus on that too, right? Because I think that was brilliant, because I haven't known how to reach out to those people instead of insulate ourselves from them.
Well, you know what got me to act? You said we're going to punish the liars.
Yeah. There is so what you're, yeah. Okay, now you give me,
We know we know
this
who
was
your
a very
enemies are.
smart discussion.
We can tell them we know who your enemies are. We know how to punish them. The way you've been trying has been ineffective. We'll show you how to punish them properly.
Right. Not by, hitting 100 and ARs out, but by waging lawfare, by waging this fifth generation warfare with memes and law and so on, then hit them really where it hurts.
Well, I bet it's going to be a flywheel of the three. You're going to have the narrative guys that are going to be winning and there, and that leads over to the banking type productive trade guys that create trade blocks. Or I mean, I think a lot of this comes back to Lucas. If you don't have dependencies on these guys, then everything they do is forcing compliance. You're like, we don't need to work with you. We don't need to trade with you. We don't need to share stories with you. And if you want to, if you want to toe up, anytime. Here's where we live.
I think I agree with you, Brian. I think there is a large untapped market out there of pissed off guys, especially those in the military discipline. They see things going to the shitter, but they don't know what to do about it because they only have one solution, which is
they
going
know what to
kinetic.
do with it. They're just waiting for it to go off. Tell me when to
Right.
start.
Except if we get to that step, then we're talking about a civilization burning event, right? And we don't want to get there. We want to exhaust all our options before we have to hit the big switch. And
well, let me clarify that. I think if you have a flywheel, you're always going to have the threat of violence by
absolutely.
real.
That's always going to be the backing, right? But
it might show. It might. Let's just say it's going to be more present than it's been.
Well, there is also legal and strategic defensive violence, which can be employed at the right times. And the issue is there's a lot of angry men, but they're not organized. And if they are organized, the groups aren't talking to each other or coordinating the way they could be.
I don't know. If they're organized, they're feds at this point, or Fed infiltrated. That's the problem.
There are some well organized militia guys, but even their issue is that what's the objective? What do we do next? They're lost because they don't have a clear next objective. Soldiers need a hill to take. They need something to do. We need to give them that objective, a path towards victory, and then release them on the public to go and do that while we continue to encourage them.
Yeah, I want to push back a little bit on the notion that we're not good at bringing people in. I think we're fantastic at bringing high quality people in and filtering for them, right? But we have a misalignment in the time preference, right? We have a long term goal, and we're very clear about what that long, we're trying to save humanity, right? But that's a very nebulous goal for a lot of people, right? When you're getting punched in the face, you don't care about what happens 3 years from now when you're getting punched in the face today, right? So we're not like what is our mission statement for 2024? Can any of us articulate a mission statement for 2024?
Push Trump further right.
Right, right. So but what I'm trying to point out with that is just that we're not, there's a disconnect.
No,
To maintain that long-term goal as your daily motivation requires a level of maturity that's
yes.
that exceeds the expectations that we need to have of anybody just coming into the organization, right? So what is the short-term actions that can be taken? And
Yeah, so
one of the things that one of the roles I think that we could play really well is as that tool provider, as that mentor, and as that escalation point. And so if we start figuring out how to facilitate those pieces, then we're going to get really good at supporting smaller chapters, smaller groups, smaller locations in taking those initiatives, right? But we have to be able to give them the tools. We have to be able to mentor them, or manage them in some capacity, and we have to be an escalation point that they can rely on, right? We have to demonstrate that we have their back when they need to escalate. So
Yeah, and then we have these series of objectives. An objective might be to disable the ADL and similar minded organizations from being able to continue to wage war on us. And under that will be a bunch of more concrete examples, and different individuals will be able to look at different levels of that objectives and go, I fit in here. There'll be people literally, what do I do next? I want you to go, we're going to look for a lawyer. Go to the phone book, phone the lawyers in your city, or, really specific objectives, and other people can be given a final goal and they'll figure out the objectives necessary to achieve it. And we have to assess the people as they come in.
Okay, so corralling the discussion. First of all, who said we know who our enemies are? We knew to punish them. Which one of you said that? That was Noah. Okay, so we've got two basic and related issues on the table. I was going to, which is I'm going to frame this as Brad and Brian, okay? Because I want to frame them. Before I go there, I wanted to say, Luke, we do have a mission for this year, but it's to raise awareness. It's for us. It's not a mission for people who want to come and join us.
right,
and I
yeah.
think that's what you were getting across. And I thought that was smart. Okay. We're all happy to compete conversationally, and Brad is less so. So I want to make sure we get his issue solved. So I see this as interesting, very interesting. I like Brad's strategy of getting people involved and integrating into the organization. I like this. Does anybody have any problem with it? Responses, please. No, we're just good. Okay.
I'm all good for it. My only concern is, Dr. Brad, your bandwidth. So I will volunteer some of my own bandwidth to help you with this, because I'm good with the planning execution side of things.
There we go. There we go. Thank you very much, Francis. I love you. Everybody knows now.
And we should perhaps also be looking to first recruit some more mini Francises as well to run the different individual projects. Look for guys with experience in software development in the project management part of it.
Yes.
There's almost no one in the world better at managing complex projects than IT guys.
Okay, so because there's nothing more. You mean the only difference between I think of like rocket science and and IT, right? I don't like the word IT. IT is is the term they use in Europe, but that's the butt crack guys in America. We call it software development or software or computer or software engineering. Is the difference is that we are allowed to fail, and the rocket guys can't. And in other words, so
Is it just me or Kurt's breaking up?
Yeah, I can't get him. I can't hear him.
how's it now?
Are you back, Kurt?
Am I back?
Last thing I got was the differences.
Am I
Your
here yet?
voice is back, but your video is kind of frozen.
Well, it's probably just
I can hear you, but your video is
Well, let me see what I can do here.
almost back.
It was just too much going on my computer. Apparently Zoom got overwhelmed.
Close
you're
the
back.
chats down with all those women and you'll be able to get back.
I have friends that have taught me about women, and Luke is one of them. And so I believe it or not, I do take advice. Even from Luke. I mean, you got it, so I must be open to advice.
Or desperate.
Such a dick. All right. So, I've told Brad this, but I want to, yeah, I think this is a good experience. I think, Francis, if you could, help Brad have reasonable expectations of what humans will do. You know what I mean? Because in software, we're very conscious of, thank you for saying you can do this. I'm not sure you can.
Well, also, I usually just multiply their estimates by 3.
Yes.
Right? If they think it's going to be a week, it's usually 3 weeks.
I don't know where Sam Hughes is now, but he and Martin look almost identical, except Sam is shorter.
Huh? Where's Sam?
Oh, Sam Hughes. Sam is one of my dev leads. And we had a very close personal relationship. So just like you guys, he was very happy to call bullshit whenever I just said. So I'm famous for writing 1,000, 2,000 step project plans, right? And extraordinary detail, like estimating every component and that kind of stuff. And he's just like, yeah, Kurt, I understand, but I just double everything you do. Right? It's just like, and it's not just, and of course he's right. I mean, he's right. I mean, now you make a plan and then you hand it over to the devs to say, okay, now tell me what this really should be. And then they tell you, and the marketers tell you, and the testers tell you. All right. So, Brad, are you satisfied with this at present?
Yes.
What else would you like us to deal with, to answer or
No,
commit?
I'm very satisfied. My plan is it's just to create more operational opportunities that people can become involved in.
Brad, how come you kick my ass in meetings all day long and you come here and you're the quiet gentleman?
I have to maintain appearances.
I have this, I'm going to love on Dr. Brad for a minute. So there's Dr. Brad in the office, which is
That's
what
where
you
I
see
am.
now. Right. And he's like this whenever you talk to him in the office. Then there's Dr. Brad, who's come home, put on his casual clothes, and he's sitting in his, he's got a rather elaborate man cave. It's a separate building, this man cave, and that's Brad too. And third, I've had a couple of whiskeys, Brad. That's my favorite Brad, by the way, because that's a very funny man. And so I think you got to enjoy all 3 Brads. Am I messing with you enough, sir? Am I messing with you enough?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. All right, so we're gonna move forward with that. Brad, if you,
One more sec. Dr. Brad, I posted in a staff chat channel the strategic plan doc that
Yes.
Kurt, myself, and a few folks has been working on. It's a work in progress, but in this list, you should see a list of projects, excuse me, objectives, and so on. I think we can take some ideas from that
Yes.
list to get folks started working on them.
also, Brad, I've got this one that's the, what's his name in the T-shirt project. And,
I think, yeah, it's Tyler Neutron and Tyson Bay.
yeah, and I'm the blocking agent, so you have a good way of getting me unblocked, so maybe if you could take that one. Yes,
Okay.
yeah, okay. All right. So I just want to know if you got out of this what you want to get out, Brad.
I'm very happy.
Very happy?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Did you put on your mustache wax today?
I did put it on, yeah.
I don't know if you guys know this, but the mustache wax apparently conveys superpowers to the fair person who make use of it.
I need to learn the secret art of that. The cat seems to keep the same.
All right, Brian, I want to go over to this thing, and I think this is going to take a couple of discussions. Because this whole reach out to the angries is quite brilliant, really.
Good idea.
Can we schedule another meeting to talk about this? Brandon, Brian?
Yeah, sure. You want a group or you want you and I to powwow? Hash it out.
I'd like to do it as a group. I'm just afraid that we've only got 45 minutes and we haven't gone to the other status stuff. And so I can easily chew up another 2 hours on this topic. So
If I wouldn't mind being included in it, if
that's what I mean. I think we're going to require all of us.
Good.
but we should probably do important business first, operational business first.
We need to, now that we have a venue, we need to plan for the convention. Let's get
Yeah.
that done.
Exactly. I'm just trying to help you out, man.
Details.
Details. Look, you have a way of being charmingly dismissive that is it's the whole charm with the dismissiveness thing. All right.
As a dovetail, or at least I want to put a hanger on something or try to weave it in, Kurt, on the men's anger, and that you have men that are church, bank, and military in terms of civilizational development. We have that as a triangulation. I want to poke to that evolutionary one that you talked about with that funny dude, that wizardish type guy who he got you on your evolutionary rant for like 5 minutes straight. He talked about mass and energy, that all organisms want mass and energy. Do organisms have some degree of third thing that once they get a lot of mass and they get a lot of energy, that they're entropic or they're creative with it? Or what is the third thing as an organism grows in both mass and energy?
That's real easy. Is that in any organism, there are two possible processes. The one that's obvious, which is I like to use neurons and cells. Jesus Christ, if a neuron can transmit information by some means, it will find it. I mean, the number of ways information is transferred between neurons is just insane. And if you watch the videos of neurons growing and attaching and connecting and reconnecting, it's fucking amazing, right? But and so they're making use of chemical signatures, electromagnetic radiation, right? Proximity, differences in connectivity, boot sizes and volumes of chemistry. I mean, if they can figure out a way to calculate, I mean, if there's an avenue available, The same thing with cell walls. I mean, cell walls, I mean, you'd think that they would transfer information by one way, but they don't. They transfer information every fucking way physics will let them. So they're exhaustive. So each of those things is additive, right? That's like increasing cooperation at more and more granular levels, and they provide much more fault tolerance. But what happens when a cell becomes cancerous, right? It replicates for its value at the cost of the other cell's value. What's the problem in human organizations? It's that we all seek to maximize our individual take to the point at which there's no free capital to adapt. And the same thing can happen in evolution. There can be such excellence at exploiting a niche, such that there is no energy available for adaptation to another niche. And so this problem is the same all over, but the one we're familiar with is basically when you get an organization, you start out with marginal people, you develop excellent people, and then you start getting people who are costs. And so I'm not sure if that's what you're asking, but yeah, the problem is there's this place in the middle where you've got sufficient quantity and maximum quality, and there's a place at the beginning where you're getting the wacko libertarians, you know, on one end, and the fundamentalist Christians and the psycho ones, and the dedicated Nazi ideology, right? Ideologists. And there's another place where you end up with a bunch of people who are free riders and they sap all the energy out of it. So is that what you were asking?
Well, I think I was going for something mass, energy, and then I'm hearing like feedback or computation, or
Well,
does it go to
it's
Brandon's thing where we eventually get to competitive simulation?
well, it's entropy, right? Essentially, you're not producing enough energy. What's happening is the energy that's being produced is being fully consumed and there's no free capital. So there's no adaptive potential left. So yeah, it's a mass energy problem, right? But it's also, when you're talking about mass and energy, you also have friction and entropy, right? You know, friction, which is entropy. And so either things are cooperating, which is that together they're producing more than they can individually produce, which is why all molecules, all atoms, protoparticles, particles, atoms, molecules come together, is because largely it's really simple. If you and I can share this electron or this set of electrons, we are cooperating, right? And it's
Mass, energy, and cooperation might
What?
even be, cooperation might be the third then.
It's psychological comfort and discomfort for all organisms. Comfortable organism isn't moving.
But the point is they're more stable that way. That's how it is.
Yeah, but stable means can mean non-adaptive. You know, so
Yes.
Well, yeah, and I want to do some pushback on adaptive, because this evolutionary adaptation, I think, can also get us further wackadoodle clown world. You can adapt to fucking clown world, and that could be an evolutionary adaptation. There's this good line, this guy said that to distinguish between adaptation and healing. Healing is coming back more to this natural law, natural state. And
I think it's a misuse, and I don't want to be anal retentive here, but misuse of term adaptive. So what you're saying is adaptation is neutral, and I'm saying no, adaptation is an increase, and mutation isn't. In other words, if you can change, right, and a mutation, or it can be, or you can have an adaptation or a mutation that can be positive, that's an adaptation. In other words, an adaptation should be the positive end. If it's a mutation and it's dysfunction, it's a maladaptation, right? So you have adaptation and maladaptation. So a maladaptation increases load, right? Genetic load, which increases friction, which means it decreases returns. So it's mass energy. It's always mass and energy. It's just if that's what you're getting at, is mass energy adaptation. But it is the adaptation, which is the potential adaptation or maladaptation. It's maladaptation. You're narrowing future opportunities, right? If it's adaptation, you're increasing future opportunities.
At human scales, there's a difference between reciprocity and irreciprocity.
Exactly. But Brian, I don't feel like I'm satisfying your question.
No, I just, no, it's good. This is good.
Okay.
I'm just weaving these things so that when we come back to men and anger, and that we're looking to help direct their actions, that Noah's point is that men can handle anger a lot more, and that we want resolution of our anger to create a more just, better adaptive society. Like the degree that men especially, are furious, and women want to be off in la land and consensus, and let's just go along to get along, and we'll just ignore the atrocities, we'll just ignore the bank manipulations and the guys getting away with these type of things, it's just coercion.
The hang up is that you have to direct your aggression at the feminine, and we are resilient. We're resilient against doing that, meaning we're set up not to.
We have to reframe it as we have to direct the positive masculine against the pathological feminine. And that is the issue. It's not the feminine, it's the pathological feminine that we need to destroy.
Well, it's worse. There's
just like we also need to keep the path. So Kurt mentioned the pathological masculine earlier. Those are the men that get angry and go just bonkers, and we want to avoid working with those people because they're stuck in a bad loop. Hey, if I can break one of them out, great. I don't think we can break most of them out. So you
said direct the what masculine against the pathological?
We have to direct the healthy masculine against the pathological feminine.
It's worse because it's childishness. People who seek to satiate emotion are children, not females and males. They're not adults. So all this virtue signaling and I need to feel this way, like men should be directing their aggression at those entities that are purporting that those things are okay to do at any scale, because they are interpersonal only.
Well, this is where working with the warriors makes sense. They're trained to fight the pathological masculine, to go out and fight people who would prey on their people. And we're telling them, okay, that enemy right now is not the one you're going to be able to shoot at. We got a different enemy. It's going to take a different weapon to fight them, but you're the guys that fight things. We're going to give you the correct weapon. We're going to point you in the direction of the enemy, and we're going to tell you how to hit them. This is exactly like what you were trained to do. It's just in a different field of battle.
And also notice that the left particularly tries to create outrage, and they want a dramatic explosion. It's like a psycho girlfriend or a femme fatale wife who wants you to explode, because then they're going to use that explode against you. And that the narrative and the justice, the legal system and everything, they will hyper focus on you overreacting and losing your temper and all of that as you are the bad guy. Not all the things, the words, the display word and deed that they did that brought it to a boiling point. We need that calm, cool, stoic, very purposeful testosterone that sees through bullshit, sees through that, and just resolves the issue and solves the problem.
Well, this happens in masculine violence too. A famous tactic of the Mongols was to antagonize their foes and then pretend to retreat, so that the enemy, angry now, would try to chase them, and that would break their front line up. And since they were more mobile, they'd be able to flip around again and attack this broken up line. Almost all of the lessons you can learn from masculine violence have some analogy in feminine violence. And this will, I think, really help these guys to figure out how to fight it on the other side. And, when I say the healthy masculine, I mean, we should be helping women cultivate that as well. Help them cultivate their own ability to defend their minds. Because
Mhm.
if the men are occupied fighting the enemy, the women are going to have to do some level of their own mental defense, and since they're responsible for the children, building that up in the children as well.
So this is a good dovetail into one of my topics, which is what's going to be our theme for the summer convention. For the spring convention, we talked about strong town, but given that we changed location, I don't know if that's still applicable. And this is one of the things that I want to put before the staff, right? We have a venue now. We need to focus on, I'd say for the next month or so, and probably by the middle, I would say latest a month before the convention, which will be the middle of May, we should have the list of presentations, the theme, the objective list of presentations. Essentially, what's the message that we want to convey to the audience in summer and also in further videos. And based on what we talked about, I think this is a good candidate.
What is it, candidate?
How do we directing the masculine, the healthy masculine against a pathological feminine.
Aggression.
Oh my God, I love this. That is brilliant.
Teach them how to fight the war.
Smart.
Teach them how to fight the fifth generation war already.
You listen to you look at this crowd and you think, oh fuck, there, look at this bunch of assholes. But you guys are pretty smart in the end. Brian, Brandon, have you said anything at all this meeting?
I've said a few things, but
Have you?
it's not really necessary.
How to defeat the pathological feminine.
I like it framed the way Francis framed a little better, please. But yeah.
Well, our issue is that there are men bought off or otherwise manipulated to fight for them. Otherwise, we really have no problem. It would be easy to get rid of them.
But the pathological feminine has the power of the state apparatus.
Say that again.
The pathological feminine has the monopoly of violence of the state behind them.
Yeah. And we are seeing the healthy masculine abandon the state. It's very difficult in any of the US cities to recruit new police. And they're definitely not recruiting from the kind of people that they would have recruited from up until about the 70s. Those kind of police officers, they don't apply to be police officers anymore. And the military is having a hard time recruiting from the families that have supplied the military with men for about 200 years. They've decided that they won't support the pathological feminine that's infiltrated the state. And we're on the way. We're starting to realize it. Withdrawing support isn't enough. We also have to remove the problem itself.
Well, women have it because women are in time and it's emotional. This has been an incremental war where they just keep moving the goalposts further and further. This is where I talk about that trifunction of God. They have the omnipotent of emotion. Men have the omniscience or omniscience of knowing. That's why our group is particularly important, because we are really good at over time knowing how things they will unfold. Kurt has been particularly good at prediction, and especially a hyper complicated and purposefully. I mean, they did this in Russia, and they know they did it. They did it in Russia where they funded both sides of competing campaigns, and it's kind of like that Cloven-Piven strategy or Cloward-Piven strategy of just putting such a burden and putting so much stress. You could tell it's a very feminine strategy. You just keep having so much fucking drama that it's hard to get your knowing right. It's even hard to be present. People don't even want to be present, which is a third of the omnipresent, is you're just present to what reality is, because they're living in fucking delusional land, like utopia, and it could turn out this way and whatever. But as Twitter's showing now, like Rome was destroyed with diversity. It's not our strength. So one of the things that I think about is like, what if you push the rewind button and you went back to the original founding fathers and you actually followed the letter and the spirit of the law of what they were trying to create, and that you give the permission, like politically protected, the permission of those that want to go back to that. So you could have your colonial script again. You could have your freedom of association and disassociation. You can have, run it that, at least that's one of the things I think about. But I think for men, if we can just be present of what reality is, and we have the knowing of over time, you take those two, and that can defeat the omnipotence of the women, of the leftists, of the cognitive feminine, all of that, because they're constantly pushing emotional buttons and they're wanting us to explode. They want some sort of white supremacist, blah, 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 that they can point their finger at, that these guys are evil. They want the judgment. And we don't feed into any of that. So we need to have our own emotion I've talked about, we need to have raw sessions where our guys are fired up, but part of it is just to address what they're angry about. And there is this element that's very decentralized of what guys are most focused on because of this meritocratic nature. And men are going to be, pretty hyper focused in something that absolutely pisses them off. And so then you want to help build teams that also has some of the guidance from our guys that have a high degree of knowing, and we talk to each other like the neurons do to make sense of things so that we can give them better knowing that they are present to whatever the thing is. And then we just need a good counter to the omnipotence, that in time emotion, which Lutz talks about, is this power of emotional regulation. So that we don't get tripped up by that we have our own frame and our own control, and that our emotions feeds, our omnipresence and our omniscience, and that we direct the outcomes that we see are the most optimal, logical, rational, reasonable, and delivers justice.
So before we travel down this path any further and get into all the leaf notes, is this the topic, the theme for the summer convention, or do we have other candidates?
I think it hits it in the fucking face. I really like it.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's pretty hard to see how that isn't, holy shit, these guys are controversial. But they have stuck with the fact that if you listen to us, we make a lot of fucking sense.
Yep.
Kurt, can you give me a screen share? I've been taking notes
I
on
live,
this.
sir. How do I get this? No, that's not what I want. I want to say, there it is. There you go.
Okay, there we go. That's the one. All right, can you all see? Okay, so on the left side, I have the convention planning doc open. Right side is just the staff meeting notes. Okay, so then we have a theme: how to defeat the pathological feminine. And one of the sub bullet points here is enlist the healthy masculine fight against the pathological feminine. What I guess this is more of an ask. Is what presentations can we structure? What are the sub themes of the presentation we can structure to support this theme?
We want to say, we want to define the pathological feminine. So what is the pathological feminine? And then we want to say, what is its origins? And that's also why it's taking over the West.
So something on Abrahamism, I suppose.
Well, the seeds of it exist there, and Abrahamism took advantage of that.
Sure.
What we have to do is look at it from a even if Abrahamism wasn't there, something else would have eventually taken advantage of that ecological niche. Got to remove the niche.
And what niche is that?
It's just what we call it because of development. If it didn't happen, French would have invented something.
If the Jews didn't have been a bad idea, the French would have. That's wonderful.
So that's the what, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I felt there's also a, well, if you
Who-
follow this frame, there's a there's a what, when, where, how.
Who?
Yes.
Who is being harmed by it, and or who is being harmed by it? We want to, and this is from Josh Lysack's way of writing a book. He said you want to be really clear to talk about the harm that you have a solution to a problem. You got to be really clear what harm not implementing your solution does. This also helps where we can be very clear that we're not saying what is feminine or what is a woman is bad. We want to protect women from the pathological feminine as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I like this phrase. There's a risk of this being easily misinterpreted as that we're against women. You just have
Yes.
to replace feminine with female. So that let's set that aside for now, but let's use this term for now. And then when we work on the presentation, we may stick to this, or we may have to use, we may need to use something else. So there's,
I think feminine is good. Female is not. We'll see, but I agree with you. We'll take some time.
Well, what I think it does is it contrasts nicely with the almost decade of them calling masculinity toxic. And why would they use a word like toxic? In other words, masculinity being poisonous, when really the issue is pathological. What I think the what should also have, what is the healthy feminine? Because we want to make that contrast. We're not anti-feminine, we're anti-pathological feminine.
Mhm.
Just like we're anti-pathological masculine.
Or antisocial.
Yeah, I use the term antisocial behavior.
Yeah.
You guys see the meeting chat that I just sent over, this chart I've mentioned before? One of the best things I would say at this point is you define pathological. Pathological is false affect and false cognition. Crocodile tears about lies basically makes you pathological. A person has normal affect and normal cognition is a normal. So it could help to define that. And if you let people keep running around with their false knowing and their false emotions, we'd be constantly dealing with psychopaths. So another way to say is the men tend to be on the side of accurate or inaccurate. Women tend to be on good versus evil. So they're pointing fingers, they're all evil, which is a lot of false affect. And then they're spouting things that are inaccurate on top of that. That's largely what we're dealing when we're saying this pathological feminine. I mean, Kurt has a great series of the whole thing from Abrahamism to socialism, Marxism, postmodernism, feminism, the whole thing, and basically how it's women are being integrated to fields they're not capable of.
That could be a whole series of what happens when you institutionalize the pathological feminine.
Right.
Institutionalize the antisocial behavior. You have gangs and criminal cartels. You institutionalize the pathological feminine, and you get those spectrum of organizations that you just mentioned.
Yeah, can you write that down? Because I'll forget that point, and that's important.
I'm adding here the spectrum of organizations, and then what?
And then it would be the Abrahamic spectrum.
That series.
Yeah, that series, sorry.
Abrahamism to socialism, communism, postmodernism, feminism, woke,
What do
PC.
we call that series?
That's the Kurt series.
That's all Abrahamism. Different forms.
Uh, yes,
Construction series.
It's the many heads of Hydra.
I would start with the healthy feminine, however, Francis.
well, these are not in particular order.
I figured that, but I had to say it
yeah.
anyway, just to make me feel better.
Start with a positive. Okay, so that's
Who's been feeling you lately, Dr. Rero? That's not what you do with patients. I don't think that's appropriate with patients, if I understand.
You're not, none of you are my patients.
But
Not currently.
we do try your patients.
Yes, you do.
okay. So that's the what, or anything else on the what?
I think I would start out that conversation with sex differences.
Hmm.
And then I would, the next conversation I would bring up is the integration, starting with the aristocratics, integrating the classical, the middle class, then which gave us liberalism, integrating the lower class, which gave us Marxism, and integrating the women, which gave us feminism, and integrating I don't want to say blacks, but anyone else as race Marxism, which is woke, right? So I would see this whole spectrum as a challenge of integrating different groups and their different tactics, but the ability for us to resist the bad behavior of groups and force this integration was possible. It just, until we integrated women who are not willing to bear that cost. And
You want to start with that bomb, or you want to leave there eventually?
I would start with examining if trying to integrate them was even the right idea in the first place.
Well, we can get to that afterwards. You say, we did it, and then we did it, and this is the consequence. And this is how we could fix it. We could take it back to, hey, well, we shouldn't have done it in the first place.
Disintegrate them.
Right?
Well,
Or
part of the reason we go below where we talk about who's been affected is a lot of women think it was bad for all of you, but it was good for me. So thumbs up. And we want to make it real clear. It's actually been bad for everybody. It's actually, I think, worse for women even than it has been for men.
well, that's true. Well, I mean,
Although for men, and men have not all suffered equally either. The higher you are up on the masculine hierarchy, the less you suffered from all of these problems because you have a skill set to rise above it. It's the bottom half of men that have really taken the brunt of it.
well, it is if our standard is the family as the primary unit of primary institution of social, political, economic formation.
This may be, sorry for the interruption, but this may be obvious to all of us. But somewhere in here, or maybe even at the start, we gotta get audience on the framing of what do we consider to be good and why is it good, right? Like I feel like there are a lot of us that we are operating under a certain frame and we assume this is good. But when I talk to others outside of the circle, they ask, well, why is a family good? going back to some very, very basic, like we're not even on the same frame.
Well, first question, do we want to even attempt to attract those people?
Well, I mean, we still have to answer the objection.
We want to put we want to answer the objection because we may not have them attend our event, but we want them to watch our videos.
Yes. The people who are going to come to our convention, they already so, but it's even then, it's good to set the context, right? Let's make sure that we build on top of this common basis. And for people watching the video, which is that the widespread digitization part comes out, we do need to restate that.
Yeah, we're also providing the tools and weapons for our followers to go and make these arguments to other people.
That's, yeah.
I actually
that's
think
point.
why did we pick this subject is the very first question. And that's where we talk about the family. And, you know, we you know, justification for the subject was this is the biggest threat facing the family and every other Western institution at the moment.
In the context of a population that's in decline.
Yes.
Yeah, like Peter Zion, everybody's concerned about population decline, but they never really went to, well, why is population decline in the first place? They haven't even got to the eugenics versus dysgenics space. It's just obviously everybody's afraid of using eugenics, just to make them look like a Nazi.
That'll be our next theme afterwards.
Yes. Why Nazism is good.
No, I meant eugenics. You jumped like four sessions ahead there.
Oh God. I hope we don't post this on YouTube.
No. Well, I think people can understand jokes.
We get a lot of yucks out of it.
Yeah, I think people understand jokes, but the family, and this is the issue, is people have been often raised in families that make them ask that question, why the family? If you were raised in a family that was healthy, it's an obvious answer to you. Like you don't need to think about it, and you don't even need to know why. You just instinctually know. And we need to help the people that weren't raised like that, because that's the majority today. The underfathered and undermothered.
Yeah.
Francis, go down to the bottom and type in outcomes, because I have 3 outcomes that I think are pretty clear that I'd like to see. So this is it, if we think about a movie, and I cover that a lot, you obviously want the good guys to win and the bad guys to get their comeuppance. And there's that distinction I made between the Virgin's Promise tale, which usually has the hero come in at the end to make the world right and all that type of stuff. We haven't talked about the reverse, where you have a hero who's been long fighting this battle, and then the feminine comes in at the end to try to help make the thing work out. So here's the 3 outcomes I'd like to see. Would be, we could put it as relationship, cooperation, and agency. Relationship, cooperation, agency. Women are particularly good at relationship. We know that. What I'd like to see is that the women that either get or attend or whatever, is that they start to bond over waking up to feminine forms of violence and this anti-social behavior, and that they create a commitment to kind of restore the feminine, and that they are going to call out this antisocial / feminine forms of violence, and that they're going to begin some form of campaign to restore relationships by, men have self-imposed or whatever our restrictions on our violence, that there's going to be basically this, you could wishfully call it accounting or responsibility or being held accountable, that type, that there's going to be this women's guild they're going to establish a relationship to say, yes, this is true, we've been doing this, that's not us, this is the dark feminine, this is the shadow side, and we're going to fix this. We're going to call other women to task. Okay, So that would be a big outcome. And that they get the overtime, like they understand this series that Kurt talks about has landed solely in their lap of this feminine, movement to basically take power. And there, anyway, the second one, cooperation, we're going to fill that out, but after we talk about men of agency. Men of agency, I would love to see that this theme of men's anger and aggression of all the injustices and the things that piss them off is that there's going to be more of a focusing for men's agency, and they're going to find a band of brothers, and that it will have this tri-function of church narrative, production, trade, money, economic, or even just having debts with one another. Part of the reason this Pacific Northwest work party works is because they have debts to each other. They go and put a lot of effort to one, and now he's indebted to then trade. There's a reciprocal trade is happening there. So all the conversations around various forms of productivity and economic or whatever, they can plug in there. And then the third would be the militia or the force, and that the men, that what they're pissed off about. So I'd love to see for men that there's this degree of agency where their band of brothers come together and they're going to focus, but they're going to focus in a way that they're not lone wolves, that they lean on, like say they're a militia guys, they're going to lean on a team that's productive in trade and economic, and they're going to lean on the narrative guys that can do lawfare and word and narrative and do memes and whatever. And basically these teams are going to respect each other and work together. And then that third one of this cooperation between the two, I think, comes back to family. And I think there's going to be some really amazing solutions in there. I talk about cousin confederacy as a possibility. I think a lot of boomers would be interested in giving their assets towards some sort of conscious eugenic effort that creates autarky and self-sufficiency at a genetic family tree level. I think Luke would chime in well on this around not having dependencies. This is part of the Thousand Nations Bloom, that we actually start at that genetic kin and kith level, and that these folks remove their agency. And I think of a lot of our men, they want to find good women to marry. And I think women want to find good men to marry. And I think we're going to try to create that the cooperative is at this family level. This is the key political unit. And so we want to have very conscious, very aware families, from the good dudes, good dads, good gramps, and the other side want to really put energy into creating, a protective bubble that is both safe and secure for these family formations to happen. And we get really conscious about it, even if we use AI technology, whatever it is, but we can put a lot of effort into that. So those would be the three outcomes I'd like to see come out of it. Women that are empowered to stop their antisocial behavior. So that's going to create some more security for them, because they're going to distance themselves from entropic and destructive, threats. I want to see men that are willing to face threats and create safety through high agency, and understand that there's a meritocratic nature to it, and then they can lean on two other teams as well. And then with those, you have good relationship and high agency. They both are going to make space for strong families, and to be really conscious about eugenic efforts that are going to work, and that we can show that are optimal. Kurt said it's about near breeding. It's not outbreeding, it's not inbreeding, it's near breeding.
I'm gonna move this down here. Objective, i.e. goals.
Cool.
One of my friends, Haythrun, who I've done a few videos with, and she's had a conversation with you, Kurt, years ago, she said. She does Haythrun. It was a lady I stayed with when I was just before we had our event. Okay. She did a really good presentation to a heathen group last week, all about the pathological feminine. and how it's the source of most of the common female mental illnesses like borderline personality disorder and narcissism and these types of things. And really helping people to identify it. And what we found out was that a lot of people, they had seen the women behave poorly, these antisocial behavior, but they had no way to understand where it was coming from. They didn't have, it's like with manipulation, we gave them a way to clearly identify it. So everyone was kind of vaguely familiar with what it is. When you give them a systematic way to identify these problems, it makes it very, very clear for them. And I think early on, we need to make sure that we're really clearly giving people a systematic way to say, this is the spectrum of bad behavior that is in the feminine. This can come from men or women. And this is how you identify it, because there'll be a lot of personal takeaways. Like we're dealing mostly on the civilizational level, but people listening to it are going to care about their personal level. How do I deal with that crazy neighbor or the crazy aunt or whatever? And so that should be early on, where we're talking about the personal effects that this has in our lives and how to deal with it.
Anything else to add for
I
objective
just
ego?
want to know, could we get her to give that speech?
She would love to do that.
That's awesome.
We'd probably have to help her with travel costs. She's in Pennsylvania, but she gives this speech repeatedly. Okay, she gives a speech repeatedly to mostly heathen groups, and folk building groups.
How do you spell
She's very
heathen?
experienced with this. HEITHRUNE. THRUN. No E at the end, just RUN.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
About giving her. I think she could be one of the. Well, we'll slaughter it in somehow.
Here. That's how she writes it.
She's quite a good public speaker.
Okay, anything, well, first of all, time check. We are at our 2 hours mark, but I feel like we're on a roll. Are folks good with continuing? Let's do that.
I'll be here.
All right, so outcome, anything else on outcome?
I don't know, I fucking love this discussion.
All right, we can always add more later. Let's go back to, all right, theme, how to defeat the pathological feminine. We start with clear stating what is the good, and also it essentially harkens back to our fall convention, right? It's focused all on the family. We can just say, well, that's what we did last time. For the details on that, go watch these videos and so on. And then we go to sex differences. And getting to why it has been bad for everyone. Then we go into the what. Start with what is a healthy feminine, to distinguish that from the pathological feminine. The origins, what happens when you've institutionalized it. Anything else on the what? Take it that is a no.
I think we're good.
Okay, so we have the what, we explore the what, we have some of the who, not.
I think the who
some of
should
the
start
how.
with we have to be real clear in the who. Both men and women are demonstrating pathological feminine behavior, are capable of it. Because this helps to separate that we're not beating up on women. I'm actually more upset at men that demonstrate pathological feminine behavior than women that do it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, but we can beat them.
Yes, exactly.
There's nothing inherently masculine or feminine about those behaviors, but feminine evolutionary niche benefited from them far more, so that's why it's more natural to them.
Martin's volunteering to give that as part of the speech.
I suppose.
And Marin, please don't read.
I think, Martin, is that because you're in touch with your feminine side?
Let's go with that.
Okay, the who.
Did we lose Dr.
So we
Brad?
start
I think
with
we
both
lost
men and
Dr.
women.
Brad. Yes.
Yeah, he has to do work.
These people and their jobs, I tell you.
Listen
Right.
to you. You know how hard it is to get on your schedule?
I booked up like a month ahead.
Okay, so we have this. Both men and women can demonstrate pathological feminine behavior. Who's being harmed by the pathological feminine? What else under who?
We could talk about some
Who benefit-
specific individuals whose philosophies and political ideas have made popular and institutionalized the pathological feminine. But then we're pointing very specific fingers at specific individuals. I like that. But that's more controversial than talking in general terms.
Or are they talking about people who are dead or people still living?
Both. We could have both.
I think we should talk about that. Just part of it is identify your enemies, right? The source
Yep.
of just like
When
we're
we
the
tell people
source
we
of the
know who
good.
your enemies are, we better be able to name
Right.
them.
How'd you put it? This is identify
Specific
the-
individuals that have promoted the increase of the pathological feminine in society. That covers a bunch of different types of promotion.
pathological society. Okay. What else? Let's up level a bit. So we have what, who, how. I feel like there should be a where and a when to complete it all.
Everywhere, all the time.
Yeah, well, what do you mean? How it's spread? What do we ask? What where question are we asking here?
Well, I'm just providing a framing. If there's anything, see if there's anything that goes in there.
Well, the places with the greatest distance from nature's feedback are the places that afford for the greatest childishness. So
Oh, that's great.
That's
How
really
that goes back to Kurt's talking about the cities being a grinder of
genetic
of,
meat grinder.
the meat grinder of oh yeah.
It's also greatest opportunity to manipulate people.
Mhm.
Yes.
Well, it's everywhere you're
High
jockeying.
cities are evil and should all be burned.
Anywhere you're jockeying for social status as opposed to demonstrating your competency in a hierarchy, like you're probably making a mistake.
I've actually read good posts on why in today's world cities are completely pointless and no longer need to exist.
I agree with whoever wrote that.
I'll share it.
I'm
we're just
gonna-
not even talking about cities, but the West in general has done a good job of pushing nature back. So we've created a vast opportunity for childishness.
Yes.
Your research program turns out to be pretty useful, Luke. I mean,
How did you look? How did you put it? The places further from nature's feedback or
For the greatest opportunity for childishness.
yes. For the greatest opportunity for child.
And of course, that's how I frame the pathological masculine or feminine. It's just childish expressions of each of those. So
They preserve immaturity as opposed to innocence.
right.
Oh my God, yes, write that. That's fucking beautiful.
Brian, how's it go? They promote immaturity rather than
Innocence.
Yeah, preserve is the word he used.
Yep, they promote it too. You can put a lot of P words in there.
Profit from.
Yep. Persist it. Productize it.
persist.
Perpetuate.
We're playing with you a little.
Well, these will become seeds for presentations. So it's good to capture them all down.
Well, antisocial behavior always expresses as resistance to cooperation.
Yes.
So we can express this paradigm as a universal paradigm. It doesn't even have to be gendered.
That's cooperation by Luke's definition, because feminine antisocial may be getting you to voluntarily comply.
Yes. I'm debating on whether or not to abuse their frame, which people split it up right into the two. But that splitting it into the two is a matter of compatibility, not a matter of cooperation. The market arena, right, determines the type of cooperation that's necessary. Compatibilism happens at biological level. It's two different maintenances.
I'm afraid I didn't quite catch that.
The problem in the mating realm is that men and women aren't compatible. Not that they can't cooperate with one another. In all the market spaces, the problem is we can't cooperate with one another. That they're extractive, that we work on the side of the institution we're operating inside of economically instead of for the social fabric inside of that institution. That's why states within a state emerge. Google, Apple, Facebook, etc. So the maintenance of innocence and compatibility between your peoples is a different focus than the cooperative endeavors they undertake to achieve particular outcomes.
In other words, those are actually along different dimensions.
Yes.
Any other thoughts on the where?
Why the West? Why is the West
Yes. Yes.
specifically attacked? That's the where.
Yeah.
So it's one of the where questions.
It is not just the West. There are
It's true. Well, that I think is part of it. I
Why
mean,
did it start in the West?
I talk to a lot of Muslims, and that one lady that you and I, she's a little hyperactively, she's autistically deranged. That Persian lady, she was saying the same thing. She says Islam fronts as an extremely masculine culture, but it's actually run by the women.
Yeah,
Your mother has all the power.
yeah, I was going to say that it's present in the Middle East, but it doesn't seem like an attack because it's been organized that way for centuries.
Yeah.
Thousands of years.
Yeah. Well, the thing is women have by nature tremendous power because they have control over small children.
Well, other places don't have beauty and innocence in the commons either. It doesn't give them anything to attack.
That was smart.
Well,
Well,
we'd say
also
that
they
the-
want something from us. The others really have nothing to give.
Correct. Well, we tried to make everyone trade, and everyone brought their warfare into economics.
Oh, Jesus, say that again.
I said we tried to make everyone trade, was the Anglo approach after World War II, and everyone brought their warfare into economics with them. We didn't purge their tactics for war from the space we invited them into.
Yes.
Well, even the
Daniel was
Portuguese
a
did
perfect
that.
host.
Even the Portuguese did that during the Age of Discovery. They'd rock up to a port, point their guns at the port, and go, "We'd like to trade with you, but if you don't want to trade with us, we'll fire a few rounds into your port, and then we'll ask again, and we're going to keep asking
It's the
until you
Viking
trade with
strategy.
us."
See,
Yeah.
I prefer that because that's at least honest.
Yes.
It's a Viking strategy. We
Yeah.
we would prefer to trade with you because it's profitable. But if you don't trade, we'll just take all your shit anyway.
Yeah. The
This
only
actually
time they would
remind
go
me.
straight to warfare was when dealing with Islamic ports, but and that was more of an issue of their long-standing 700-800-year-old feud with them. So, but otherwise, their primary thing was trade.
This actually remind me of some Japanese guy who once said, after the war, right? Now they're just fighting the Americans in economic terms. That's clearly China's strategy after getting admittance to the what is it,
I mean,
WHO.
yeah. Hard. There's
WTO.
other than their expansionism, it's hard to argue with the Chinese system. It's the expansionism. It's really how do you say it? Z? How do you say
Xi.
it? Xi?
Xi.
It's really his fault because Deng was kicking ass. If he hadn't gone expansionist with him, they'd fucking own the fucking planet. You pull out that military shit, and Jesus Christ. God, you're stupid.
Well,
I mean, it's up there with the stupidest political decisions in fucking history.
China has always suffered from the bad emperor problem. And even regardless of whether it's bad emperor, even the good emperors have always had a expansionist streak.
Mhm.
It's most of the time just hidden.
Well, I understand, you can look at Chinese history and say, well, we're surrounded by these fucking animals. We have to domesticate them. But, that doesn't apply to everyone. It only applies to people who are less involved than you are.
Anything else on the where?
Where from it came.
I think we touched that up in here somewhere. The origin.
We
of
could
how
talk
took
about
over
the
West there.
people because they kind of are a little everywhere. So they're kind of spread out.
Where did it come from? Origin and how it has taken over the West, and why the West in particular. That dovetails writing here. The who, the people who, say again, Noah?
Oh, it was the people who are responsible are kind of spread out everywhere. I don't think we need to specifically.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Is it the people who are responsible, or the people who Well, I guess in a sense, I'm saying that they're responsible. The people who are most
The promoters.
likely, who are most, who are most likely to promote this because it's part of their evolutionary strategy.
Ah, that's it. The people are most likely, are the people who this is their evolutionary strategy.
Pathological.
Because it's not just
due to
Jews, gypsies do the same thing.
But
Just
we're
not very
explaining-
well.
Sorry?
Just not very well.
Yes. Well, I mean, there's
They
an
don't have the IQ to back it up.
one group's got a 65 IQ and the other's got
Yes.
110.
The idea behind the law is to close this evolutionary niche because it's
Yes.
evolutionary and causes collapse over time.
Well, and I think this is the important part. I said responsible. That's not the right word. We're responsible because we allowed it to happen. And what we have to see is that someone will exploit that niche. If it's not one, it'll be another. And so, yeah, close the niche.
Then I think we should, just after this, add Luke's point around hate and anger, make a distinction there. That
Sorry, you're too fast for me. I need to finish the thought first.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
You know, you guys all have edit rights to the stock, right? You don't need to watch me type.
It's like a transportation thing. The one guy's digging and you got 4 or 5 other guys watching him. The
Like
work
trade
crew.
union.
Unions still exist, so
And now like union. Where is this? So Brian, where does the next part go?
I mean, I think it's right after that is fine. Is that Luke makes a distinction of kind of enemy and friend distinction,
Mm.
and that we have more anger and upset that for friends because it taps into betrayal, but you don't have near as much anger or upset to an enemy who is treating you as an enemy. So it doesn't trigger. Now I get that our guys are angry and they're trying to direct it towards the bad guys. I get that, but there's just a really interesting distinction that he talks about. Maybe he can add to it a bit here because I think it will help the men in the audience. It also helps calm down that that angry violence versus being very calculated and solving a problem.
Yeah, the warrior class is prepared to fight other men, but we're actually fighting ideas. That's the first function does that. That's the judges and priests. And we can train the warrior class to fight ideas, but their way of fighting idea is to kill the guy who's got the idea. I mean, it works if you do it enough times, but
Well, you know, an emotion like anger comes in different flavors, right? I don't hate my enemies for being my enemies. It's an alignment of expectation. I expect them to act in opposition to me. I expect them to act in their interests at the cost of mine. That's how you define enemy, right? Whereas my allies that are sacrificing my interests for their own, that raises an indignation form of angry, not an enemy form of angry, right? It's like you're not aligning with the expectations, and you're exploiting my alignment with expectations. You're spending trust that we've spent generations building when you do that. I don't have that trust with my enemies, so there's nothing to be spent or lost there.
anger is only useful if you can be competently aggressive and offensive. Because if you can't, it's not a useful emotion. It's one you have to suppress. If we keep teaching people that you can't be offensive or aggressive, we are going to have a problem with anger, which is what we have now.
It doesn't have to be just about trust. Obviously, attacking or imposing on other interests of ours. Those emotions can be valid. Just we have to use them in productive ways that actually get results.
The anger towards enemy versus allies. This may be the place where we want to bring out the not punch right thing. Do not punch the right view.
Then we'll have to define the right, because there's a lot of confusion about that.
Hmm.
Like, I wouldn't say Republicans are right, obviously.
I always tell everybody we're centrists. It's just that they're all about then they and whoever I'm talking to, they're all a bunch of communists. And we're centrists. We're the only rational ones. There isn't any right.
Well, it's like academic agent that's framing sensible center. I'll share that too if anybody has not seen it.
That's what I was pressing the Shaga guys to say. They need to go every time someone calls them far right, they go, no, we're right in the center. You all are on the left.
And you'd always present it frame as such. You present as the mainstream position as far left, and then you create some ridiculous drama and as actual far right.
Yeah. And you get the actual far right guys too. See, it's the thing that they understand the importance of controlling both sides of the conversation. We have to realize that too. The Irish did that. They had like 3 levels of radicalism. They had a kind of centrist, respectable party, and then they had like a radical party, and then they had guys that blew stuff up. And so what happens is the centralist guys would go, well, we're gonna, I don't know, we don't agree with them. We're gonna try to keep them under control, but you got to give us something. And then they just get the other side to keep compromising. And if you don't compromise, I won't be able to control them anymore, and they'll just go off on their own and do stuff.
It's
You
a
can't blame me.
brilliant strategy because Sinn Féin has 40% of all the political seats.
Yep.
IRA being the military arm. So in that sense, IRA achieved its strategic goal.
Mhm.
It's that violence is about getting political power.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on the who? By the way, we don't have exhausted all today, but this is but my intention is we use this as a theme to slotting the presentations.
Yes.
Right, to get the presentations in place. All right, let's explore the how a bit more. So the only thing we have right now is we want to enlist the healthy masculine in the fight against the pathological feminine.
Should we say, how did we get here? Or have we already covered
That's
that?
a little bit of the, like this part, right?
Okay.
But let's do this. I mean, it's fine to have multiple overlapping topics, and then
Well,
like
just-
one presentation would just be themed as, like, we don't have to go in this order. This is more about brainstorming, and one presentation can be on like where did this come from, who perpetrated it, and why West was attacked, and so on, and that goes to the front and so on.
When the theme is about solving the problem, so the hows should be directly applied to solving the problem, not identifying it necessarily, but solving it. So
Yeah, I think the how is only in my thought, it's like, what did we not do that we should have done? And that isn't something to give a lot of time to, because you can't fix the past. Only if you can take lessons for the future from it.
What should we have done? What?
I think an interesting how would be to develop, create, or restore a path for the feminine to become non-pathological. So to restore the healthy feminine.
Well, it's only happening for normal women that still have potential. That's not going to happen to the elites that are actually benefiting.
Well, we're also saying this doesn't just apply to women. So
Well, exactly. How are you going to restore healthy feminine in men?
I would restore their ability to become adults, because I think that the pathological is a childish expression. So that's how I would do it.
But how would grandma do it?
Well, if grandma was still around enough, he wouldn't have been allowed to reach adulthood without becoming an adult. So,
Right.
I think part of the
Problem is
how
some of
should
our
be-
grandmas are the very ones that defected in the first place. We're talking
not-
about the boomers.
yeah,
I
they're
think-
not
I
grandmas
think-
though. They outsource grandmahood. They outsource parenthood. So they're not grandmas.
I think part of the how should be the role of men in suppressing it and the role of women in suppressing pathological feminine.
Say that
I don't know.
again?
Just the term pathological implies that there's a non-pathological option. Otherwise, we just have to call it feminine and not pathological feminine. So
I was
if
just
there's
I
a
was
non-
calling it the healthy feminine, but
right, yeah. But if there's a non-pathology, then we have to
Yeah.
discover how to get there.
yeah.
Brandon, can you think about this issue in the context of education as a topic?
Sure.
Brian, when you come back on.
Yeah.
So you're actually really articulate, but you don't write much, do you?
No,
No.
I could.
What?
I said I could.
You've had at least 2 thoughts today that would be great propositions for presentation in this context.
Sure.
You're talking about how to solve it by reaching out to the angries. But I think you described with painful clarity this problem. And you do it in a way that is accessible, quite unlike my rather abstract analytic method. And I really like that. I'm still reluctant to put asks on you, but I really would like it if you would consider putting those 2 presentations together.
All right. Yeah.
That was too easy.
Hey, we all do our part. We do all our part.
You're
So,
limited to 45 minutes each for a combined 90 minutes.
I'll keep it short. I'll keep it shorter for sure.
So Francis, is that telling me that I have to write 10 45-minute speeches instead of 1 for the 50-minute speech?
There you go. Okay, that's the how, the where. Wait, just before I forget, the 2 things on Brian. What were those 2 things again?
It's probably the angries and then the 3, the try function of
How to reach out to the angries. And what was the other one?
is that there's a try function between church, bank, and military.
Church.
Oh, I think that's the same topic. I was talking about how you were explaining the feminine. Shit, I didn't write it down. God damn it. You dish out the brilliant idea and you don't remember what the fuck you said. What are you doing? Trying to imitate Hayes?
We have this recorded.
I mean, at least, with him, it's like a 10-second delay and he's forgotten what he said. I would expect you to last at least 15 minutes.
Well, luckily we got this one recorded, so we can review.
All right, we'll go back and find out. Jesus.
But explain the feminine, I do think the ladies like me to talk about them because they secretly are all narcissists and want to hear about themselves.
Oh,
Closing other people's frames does not require taking on their perspective.
fuck, Brad. Oh, shit. I love how all the female criticisms of men online, all these crazy chicks, they're all projections. it's like they're talking about male narcissism, and I'm like, that's male narcissism is really fucking rare, and it's mostly in the gay community, right?
Right.
I'm like, what are you talking about? I can't try to find a woman under 20, under 30 who's not a narcissist today, you know?
Right.
Or they always go to your motivations. It's like, what? My motivation is simple. I mean, or why, or the double standards. It fucking kills me, right? The double standard thing. Like, I can whore around as much as I want, right? But and that won't affect my market value. And it's like, well, I can live as hedonistic a male life, spending all my money and not saving any, having any capital, right? I mean, that's the same fucking thing, because
Right.
we accumulate different kinds of capital. They can't even imagine, because they can't introspect well enough, that it's really easy if you fucked enough women. I mean, I'm sure Brian probably knows this. If you fucked enough women, that they lose their bonding ability relatively quickly.
Yeah.
And so, God damn it, I don't know. I think it's just fucking insane.
Okay, bring us back on topic here.
So, I was just waiting for you to type, okay?
I'm done typing. Any
Sorry, I'm just talking with Hathron about it. What were the dates again?
the June 14th to 16th.
And the city it was in again?
Just call her Seattle.
Okay.
I'm gonna go and I'm gonna stay extra time. I'm gonna visit with Francis and Doug. I'm gonna see my son. I put out a
should take your
call.
son to one of our training classes. We have like starting handgun classes. Great for how old is your son?
He's 18.
Oh yeah, well it's definitely old enough for that. If he's into that kind of thing.
I think my son is me if he had not had my father. Very interesting. Be interesting to have Luke listen to me and my son, and then have Luke explain. I mean, because I can't do it objectively, and have Luke put it into his terms. That would be fucking fascinating. Because I mean, he's really a clone, but he's been raised by his mother in the Seattle area, instead of me raised in rural New York, farmland New York.
Which is even more important. You gotta have him connected with the men in the local area.
Yeah, I just bridging anything with him that might cause a feedback from his mother. I mean, they've got guns in the house, because the guy she hooked up with, right, her husband, he's not a bad guy, right? I mean, he's like every other guy she dated other than me, is a bit of a lower on the competition scale, right? Competitive scale, but he's got guns and the whole thing. He's a conservative. He's not in the pussy category, but I don't know how she'll deal with me trying, because I'm just storming in and out of nowhere, right? You don't want to come when you're in a relationship where you're like very distant from your ex and your kids. You can't just go there and say, "Hey, do what I want. Let me help. Let me influence you."
Sure, let me make this a portray it as she and your son can go both get some education. Anyways.
Or his stepdad. He is stepdad.
Yeah.
That would probably work.
I think women are more in tune with, they don't want general violence. They're okay with redemption arc and revenge and something very specific. The only general that they'll accept would be general defense, which is what it constantly gets pushed as. But I think they're totally open especially if we talk about men that are directing their anger and energies towards injustices,
Yes.
and that they can get behind it, meaning that they can assign it good versus evil. They need that distinction very clear for them to then put their empathetic cheerleading magnifying behind it.
Did you hear about the case right now where there's some guy going around punching women in New York City?
Yeah.
And a half dozen women have posted videos about it. And it's a black fellow. He just walks up to them and smacks them in the face or hits them with a bag full of cans or something like this. And Luke said earlier that the feeling of insecurity is rational when you're in an insecure situation. And so these women are in an insecure situation, and the demand for a solution to that will continue to grow.
Right.
And I mean, if we're going to talk to any essential need for women and we talk to their ability to be secure, that's the one that's going to get them to potentially make adjustments.
Well, the other thing that's going to really work for women is because they have an external locus of control, is that you have to give them some other blame. You got to give them, I mean, you can blame.
It's not
that-
your fault. We let you be stupid.
Well, no, it's more into the Kurt series that goes through this whole thing, and that you can point your fingers that this was postmodernism, feminism was really to defeat women, and that you can, to some degree. I mean, we want them to take more accountability and responsibility, especially for calling it out, and largely they look for an external locus of control. I'm a Scorpio, or the Gemini did it, or it's, I don't know, space weather, or whatever that is. Like, you have to give them, even if it's only 50% of it, that they can blame it on education, herd consensus, that it was undermining or whatever. That'll give them enough that they won't be crippled by, I guess, self-criticism. Noah, you were talking that about, like, anything that triggers their own self-doubt and their insecurities can be really, really destructive. Not to say that they can't grow through that, but I would give them at least half a finger to point towards something that they could blame, because that's the same finger that men can go kill.
There's a beautiful sort of talk to be given on the attempt, the post-war attempt to claim the sexes are equal, and by the Academy, and the post-internet attempt, successful attempt, and demonstrated evidence of their inequality but compatibility. And how this shows up both in certain successes, like the Scandinavian models, where women become more pursue even more feminine careers and ambitions, and men more masculine. And how the dating market has been destroyed by this hyper feminization of the, without their being limited by reciprocity. In other words, they tried to create a monopoly. This is weird because there has been traditionally a monopoly of social among the feminine, and economic and political and military with the masculine, familial and social with the feminine. And that trade-off seemed to work really good, but neither of us are very good at reversing that strategy.
Wasn't
Maybe you could
sure
say
if-
more about how compatible does not equal compromise.
Say that again?
Maybe you can say more of compatible does not equate to compromise. Neither
Well-
men or women have to compromise
Mm.
their way
I'd
of
say
thinking, how they figure the world, that it's
Yes.
compatible. It's not a compromise to create a stable relation.
Well, okay, but they do have to compromise on their strategy. They might otherwise intuitively default to.
Hey, Kurt, are these the three? You said you mentioned the post-war attempt to portray sexes as equal, which they succeed to a certain extent. Post-internet attempt to demonstrate inequality between the sexes and yet their compatibility.
It's, I think what I'm trying to get across here is that the academy was led one direction, but the population actually are solving the problem. But, you know, why is it that the manosphere figured out women? Why didn't the academy figure out women?
Because they didn't try to,
That's right.
the goal.
Pickup artists, you should have seen the way that they were doing. I didn't see it. They've told me this. From the 80s through to the early 2000s, these guys, they would have a book like this, and they would write down exactly what they did because they were
Empiricism.
mostly autistic. Exactly what they, yes, exactly. And they would approach thousands of women, and every week they'd get together. And if you were part of the group, you had to approach at least X number of women. And then they would all compare notes. They would note patterns, and they would try to figure this out. It was empiricism. They were doing science, while the academy was doing politics.
Yes. That's
Or
great.
the academy was doing religion.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kurt, you mentioned there's a destruction of the dating market due to some monopoly. This is monopoly of what?
I didn't mean monopoly. I meant the tendency of the feminine to be dominant over the masculine, where the masculine traditionally was simply was separate from the feminine. I don't know how to describe that. In other words, men compartmentalize. We break up things into groups, and you're responsible for this, and we're responsible for that, right? But the feminine wants to own everything, and the problem is it's not inconsistent with reality.
They get from the state what they used to get from men, which reduces demand for men.
Well, I mean, that's not only a problem in sex, that's a problem in races and everything. You know,
See you, Noah.
if you took the one that went around yesterday, who just left?
Noah. He has to take his son somewhere.
You know, if you the one that's going around yesterday is, it takes 3 white men over 35 to pay for each black person in taxes.
Wow.
Right. So it's because every white man on average over 35 during his lifetime will produce a net set of proceeds of around $250,000. But the average black person consumes $750,000. It takes 3 white males to produce income for cover one black person.
That's that video from Ryan Falk, the case for repatriation, counted it all up.
Yeah, there you go. It's cheaper to send them back.
I mean case for reparations.
Oh, and I see. We're already paying reparations.
Oh, I see. I thought you were like reparation the other way. It was like, how do you get people who can produce nothing to repair to conduct reparation?
Blood out of a child.
There's nothing to produce that we want. I think we're kind of running out of steam here. There's the when that we haven't quite got to, but my ask for everybody is here is add your ideas in here. Let's brainstorm, and then out of the ideas, the individual ideas, we can weave them into presentations. So that's
Sounds
what
good.
that's what we're going to be focusing on for the next couple of weeks. Brandon, how about you and I work offline about ticketing? So I put together this, which is the set of budget. Basically, the room that I booked now is good for maximum 50 people, right? Even without desks and everything. So if we get more signups than that, we're gonna have to expand into the next room. And there's also like catering concern, all those like basically numbers. And that will determine our early bird ticketing versus later signups and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So
Smart
let's
move.
get that out and update the website so people can start signing up. Where else was going misses while we develop the list of presentations, because one of the feedback from last time is we got the word out too late and people didn't have time to go plan and everything. But I figure we can start selling tickets now, just letting them this is going to be the case. Here's the dates and so on, and then more details to follow.
Can we sell into this theme? I think we can, can't we?
Yeah, we can.
Oh,
But let's what do we, is this what we're going to call it? How to defeat the pathological feminine? Or do we want to like wordsmith
No,
it?
he said it the way. No, it was the way Noah said it. It was like the positive masculine containing the pathological feminine. Something like that. We have to get Noah back.
Well, that's patriarchy.
Listen to the recording. You might hear it.
Yeah. It's a 3-hour fucking recording. Oh, the transcript. This thing's making a transcript. Yay!
Okay, Kurt, I'm going to assign that task to you.
Yes, dear.
Words, come up with a theme that we can put on the website.
All right. You my work wife. Is that how this is working? I don't know. I feel like I'm the wife.
I have no fucking clue.
I'm just fucking with you, dude. Don't, because you're trying to concentrate and I'm trying to fuck you up. That's all.
Post an official theme for summer convention. Okay. I think once we have that, and once Brendan and I come up with the ticketing theme, we can just publish it and then broadcast it for people to sign up.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We got anything else?
I love you guys.
All right. I'm gonna stop.
Hey, Brian. Oh, I can't say that. I haven't even got the balls to say that in this group. Sorry, I'm not gonna say that. That's it'll come back at me too hard. No, I'm not gonna say that. I was
Good
gonna
work, guys.
love you guys.
See y'all.
See you tomorrow.